What's going on, guys? Eric here from Autotech Tuners. Today, I'm going to give you guys an update on the Mazdaspeed 3. So far, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I'm quite satisfied. No oil leaks, no fluid leaks, no issues with the car. The only issue I have with the car is it's hard to drive when you're accelerating quickly in first and second gear. Because Gen 1 transmissions, as most of us know, are pretty shortly geared, compared to the Gen 2. So that's why the Gen 2 might be a possible swap in the near future. Gen 2 transmission, I might be able to get my hands on one at some point, but we shall see. Currently, I'm just having fun with the Gen 1 tranny. Last video, I was on 16 to 17 pounds of boost, running a base map. I consider it a base map because I consider a base map like minimal wastegate duty cycle, very low ignition timing, within the limits of the stock fuel system. That's what I consider a base map. Something that runs and doesn't really have any major fueling issues and whatnot. My driving skills are not really the greatest. You saw that in first and second gear, I kept bogging. I kept shifting to the next gear and then it would bog and I would have to re-spool up again. And I've gotten a little bit better since then. I figured out that you basically have to just make sure you don't spin first and second. Try not to, at least. And then just granny shift into the next gear. Just because for me, it's very difficult to drive the Gen 1 because the gears are so short in first and second that it's very easy to break the tire loose. So you kind of have to modulate the throttle. Now, there are ways to prevent tire slip, being front wheel drive and having really crappy rubber. You can actually limit load targets and you can limit peak throttle positions in first and second gear. When we say boost by gear, we're technically already naturally achieving boost by gear to some degree because first and second already naturally won't be able to hit higher boost targets as you would in third, fourth, and fifth and sixth. I have been working hard whenever I have time to dial this car in. I'm on my 22nd revision now. Still on pump gas. It's taken me a while, but the beauty of self-tuning is that you can actually take as much time as you want, do as many revisions as you want, as many small incremental changes as you want to make sure that your fueling targets, your boost targets, and everything in between is right on par with where you want it and where you're happy with. That's the beauty of self-tuning, I think. That being said, we're up to about 25 PSI right now. So we went from 16 to 17 pounds of boost up to 25 PSI currently. And that's probably where I'm gonna leave it for pump gas. I'm probably not gonna go higher than 25 PSI on pump gas. And I'm definitely gonna leave the ignition timing very conservative on pump gas because with pump gas, you just never know. You just never know where that knock threshold is. I mean, you can push it and push it and push it until you reach the knock threshold, but there's no point in risking it. If I wanna make a lot of power, I'll just mix the in-tank methanol. Planning on running 2 gallons to start. 2 gallons of in-tank methanol mixed with 94 octane. And if I need more, I could go more. But I know a lot of guys who are running like 35 PSI and making like 500 horsepower with only 2 gallons of in-tank methanol mixed with 94. So I think I'll be fine with that. I don't really know if I'm gonna make it to 500. I don't really plan on taking it to the dyno again because I don't think it's necessary. I already know how to tune the car to a happy place. So we'll get to that point in a future video, but in this video, I just wanted to explain to you guys where we're at with the car. Currently on 94 octane still running the same ignition timing table, ignition timing curve as the base map in that other video. So that means I'm only running about 8 degrees of ignition advance at 6,000 RPM. I usually go off of the 6,000 RPM mark because that's right before red line, but like still high RPM. But I am revving out to 7,000 RPM and using the watt box as a rev limiter to cut the ignition at 7,000 RPM. And then what I do is I set my OEM rev limiter, the OEM ECU. I set that rev limiter to 9,500 because it'll never reach that because the watt box will cut the ignition at 7,000 RPM before that point. I can't remember exactly what boost pressure I brought it up to. I think it was somewhere around 19 to 20 pounds of boost, where the fuel injectors at high RPM, the stock injectors, would be very close to 100% injector duty cycle, so pretty much nearly maxed out. It got to a point where I maxed out the fuel injectors, right? And then at that point, I'm making sure that my air-to-fuel ratio is exactly where I want it to be. And I kept it rich intentionally, you know, mid-10s, 10.5 to 11, just for the initial phases of tuning. Basically what I do then is I start creating a fuel map for the split-second controller using the R4 software. And then what I do is I started off with 1.5 milliseconds across the entire range, flash that, do a pull, see how it richens the fuel mixture up, right? So we're still maxed out on the stock injectors, and then you add the auxiliary fueling for like 1.5 milliseconds just to start. I could have gone lower. I could probably go as low as like 1.2, 1.3, but again, in that other video that I made where we tested the 6-port auxiliary fuel injectors, it's 2 Bosch 1000cc injectors. We found that at 1 millisecond, they don't even open. So I determined that I did say 2 millisecond would be my base, but I decided to do 1.5. And we actually got to the point where we brought it down to 1.4 as a base. So, but essentially what I did is basically just 1.5 milliseconds across the board, do a pull, see how much the fuel mixture richens up. And then let's say I'm hitting 11 to 1 with the stock direct injection system. And then with the auxiliary fuel injection system, I might hit like 10.5 to 1 with 1.5 milliseconds. Then what I do is I reduce the stock injectors, you know, to bring it back up to 11. And then my injector duty cycle drops, right? So it drops down. Now what I can do is I can raise the boost up a little more, which will then bring the injector duty cycle back up close to 100, and then add more auxiliary fuel, and then again dial down on the stock DI system. It's just a blending of the auxiliary fuel system and the stock fuel system. So what we're doing is, right now the stock DI fuel system's up to here, maxed out, right? So what we're doing is we're adding a little bit of auxiliary fuel, right? And then reducing a little bit of this. And then we're raising the boost up. And then this shifts up again. Injector duty cycle goes a little higher here again. So we raise this up, bring it down, okay? Boost goes up, this goes up, raise this up, this comes down, right? And it gets to a point where we're blending the two. So right now, 25 PSI, I've got the stock injector duty cycle down to 85% at 25 pounds of boost. And my peak millisecond pulse width on the two 1000cc injectors is 3 milliseconds right now. So I still got a lot of room to increase the pulse width on those auxiliary fuel injectors. But again, it's 6-port, so it's injecting before the throttle body, and it relies heavily on the intake manifold. So I don't want to rely on the 6-port auxiliary fuel injection kit too much, especially because it's a side feed intake manifold. I was talking to Tuned by Nishan on Instagram a while back, and he said he recommends that if you're going to run 6-port or any pre-throttle body injection method, it's better to do it on a center feed manifold like the JMF or the ST manifold. Now, with the Corksport intake manifold, yes, it's a very well-flowing intake manifold, but it's a side feed. So there could be potentially some dispersion issues between cylinders. That's possible. But I have seen Tuned by Nishan take 6-port kits, 6-port setups up to past 500 horsepower on even a stock ported intake manifold. You can see it on his YouTube channel. So it gives me hope. So I think I'll be fine with the 6-port kit, but I don't want to rely too much on 6-port for fueling, you know. So I'd rather get my car to a point where it's running 90% injector duty cycle on the stock injectors at 28 pounds of boost, let's say, as opposed to 28 pounds of boost and only, let's say, 80% injector duty cycle on the stock injectors, and have the 6-port take up the slack, because I would rather have stock injectors do most of the fueling as opposed to the 6-port fuel injectors doing most of the fueling. Just my opinion. But we're at 25 PSI right now. The car runs great. I've got no issues. I'm going to settle on 25 PSI with pump gas and try to keep ignition timing conservative. I might try to increase it a little bit just to see where we're at, see if we see any knock and all that stuff. But if we don't see any knock, you know, if we do start to see knock past 8 degrees at 6,000 RPM, then obviously I'm going to have to dial it back, right? but definitely going to keep it as rich as I can on pump gas, especially. Probably anywhere from 10.8 to 1 to 11.2 to 1. Try to keep it rich, you know, low 11s, and low timing, and just keep the boost at 25. For more power, I'm just going to rely on the alcohol mix. So that's where we're at so far, guys. Wanted to give you guys an update video. Sorry for the rambling, but hopefully you got some knowledge out of that. But in the next few clips now, I'm just going to basically show you how 25 PSI looks like with 8 degrees of ignition advance. Before we actually go and do some pulls, I want to give you guys a little bit of a rundown on what we've got done to this pretty sweet looking 2009 Mazdaspeed 3, if you ask me. So performance stuff. As you can tell, put a lot of time and effort into this thing. So there's absolutely no way I'm going to be selling it. Performance stuff. Corksport intake manifold. Very good manifold. 2% flow imbalance. Hand polished. Full race exhaust manifold. Very good flow imbalance. All that kind of stuff. Upgraded turbocharger. Bnr S5, stage 5. You know, good stuff. Definitely a lot bigger than the stock KO4. Cpe 3-inch downpipe with a C&T catback exhaust. So it's 3 inches from the turbo back. What else do I got done to this thing that's performance oriented? Well, I got a 3.5-inch Corksport intake. So that's pretty big. Pretty much the same diameter as the turbo's inlet, which is 3.5 inches. I got a Guardian Angel version 3 from Stratified Automotive Controls. What this basically does is get a signal from the AEM AFR failsafe to dump the boost in the event that the AEM AFR failsafe detects a lean mixture, in the event that the 6-port or auxiliary fuel injection system fails. Because anything can happen, guys, right? It's the auxiliary fuel system is an external fuel system. It's not connected to the ECU, so they have to be tuned independently of each other, but they have to be blended with each other. Speaking of auxiliary fuel, this is a Speed Performance 6-port secondary fuel injection kit, or auxiliary fuel injection kit, but on their website they brand it as a secondary fuel injection kit. Now, pre-throttle body methods are okay. They work. I mean, this one works. But port injection, where you have one injector in each runner, that is going to be more accurate. So, but so far this 6-port kit seems to be working fine. So what else do I got? Damon Motorsports passenger side and transmission side motor mounts, and for the rear motor mount I've got a Corksport Stage 2. So I decided to give that one a try because of their design. Their different design there with the different pivot location. And what else do I got? That's pretty much it for performance. Oh, JBR under-out piping. So that's it. Suspension, very simple. Eibach lowering springs, Eibach Pro Kit with Tony yellow shocks. Good enough for the street and decent enough for the track, whenever I do decide to take it to the track. But I'm definitely not a track guy. You know, I don't really track too much, but especially with these cheap wheels that I got on here. I got these for like 400 bucks. MST Suzuka, they look like RPF ones, and to be honest, the quality's actually not that bad. That's kind of why I pulled the trigger on them. But I got them from a guy I used to work with who paid like 700 to 800 bucks for them, and he had them on a G37. So I figured, you know what, I need some new wheels, so I might as well just pull the trigger on it. And so far they've been completely fine. I did a little bit of research on MST, you know, and haven't really heard anything bad about them. So those are the wheels we got in there for now. But if I do decide to track, I'll probably end up putting the stock wheels on. Anyways, guys, well, that is what I've got going on. Let me just give you guys a little walk around for those of you that are new to the channel. Okay, see that? Pretty sweet, crystal pearl white. It's not bad. It's a pretty sweet looking car. Simple. I didn't want to go over the top with it. Most of the money's under the hood, anyways. I've seen a lot of guys do a lot of nice cosmetic work to these things on the exterior, but for me, this is good enough for now. Oh yeah.
wondering if that breakup was because of potentially spark plug blowout or too rich, because I don't see any knock. I don't see any knock retard. 18 degrees Celsius outside right now, so it's pretty good boost weather. Dip in power, because I don't see any knock. There's no knock retard, so I'm pretty sure it's just because it's just too rich. So I'm gonna pull some fuel and we'll see if we can get some more pulls in. So I found that it was running a little bit rich up top, like 10.29 to 1. That could have been why I was breaking up a little bit in third and whatnot, but I pulled back some fuel. The injector duty cycles were right around 80%, so they're moderately low. That's going to give us some room for the in-tank methanol, because since it's more oxygenated, the OEM injectors are going to have to inject more. So we're relying on about 20% of fueling from the 6-port auxiliary fuel injection system. I'm not too pleased with that right now, but because of the fact that we don't really know exactly if that fuel is being dispersed evenly, but seems to be running fine, other than the fact that it was breaking up, and I think it was due to the rich fuel mixture. So I pulled back some fuel, so it's going to be running a little bit on the leaner side, maybe low 11s now, hopefully. So let's see what happens. I checked for leaks, all that kind of stuff. We're okay there, so. Third gear. Yeah, I definitely ran a little leaner there. This is what's important about tuning, guys. We have to dial the fuel mixture in and the boost curve first simultaneously before we even touch ignition timing. So like I said, we're only at 8 degrees right now at 6,000 RPM. So it's a slow process, you know? Trying to do it safely here in Mexico. I will say leaning it out does seem to make it feel a little bit more powerful. Data logging, first gear, here we go. Wish me best. Yeah, it's running better with the lean mixture. 24.67 pounds of boost. See if I can get a fourth gear in here. Let it cool off during decel. Wow, that is something else. Here we go. Okay, so I didn't redline that all the way there. I think I might have stopped at like 6,000, but it started getting a little bit rich up top again. We dipped down to like 10.8. It wasn't as rich as before we were running down to like 10.29, so I didn't feel any breaking up or anything of that sort, so I'm just gonna pull just a touch more fuel up top, and then as long as the air to fuel ratio curve is nice and smooth along the entire RPM range, we're pretty much ready to start mixing in-tank methanol, which will bring the injector duty cycle back up, because right now we're right around 80%, so mixing in 2 gallons of in-tank methanol might bring us up to 90% possibly, I'm not entirely sure, but hopefully we'll have enough room to turn the boost up a little more. If not, I might have to increase more fueling from the 6-port kit just to make sure the injector duty cycles on the stock DI system is happy. Definitely going to be a lot of fun at the track. I'm not huge on track times per se, but I do enjoy the straightaways. Third gear. 4.5 pounds of boost, baby. You know what? I'm gonna leave it right there on pump gas. We'll tinker with timing a little bit on pump gas, but again, we're only running 8 degrees at 6,000 RPM. 24.5 pounds of boost. It's like, on a cold day, we'll hit 25. But like, honestly, I am satisfied. I can only imagine what this thing is going to be like once we start mixing in intake methanol. Like, I don't know how the camera view looks, but it is exciting from this driver's seat. I can't believe it. And this is on pump gas. Like, I don't even have to mix anything. How convenient is that, you know? Just put 94 in and go. All right. Well, that is some good stuff right there. Woo! Goes to show that you don't really need to have a crazy setup to have fun, guys. Simple bolt-ons, you know, an upgraded turbo that flows well. Good flowing parts, you know. Solid foundation. I definitely likes a little bit of a leaner mixture. There's no need to dip down into the 10s, I think. I think low 11s is a nice spot to be in. Low to mid 11s. You can richen it up a little bit up top just for cooling in the higher RPMs. Methanol, baby. Oh my God, it's too much. First and second gear, guys, you definitely gotta blend the clutch I'm gonna figure this out, guys. I got new tires that I'm gonna be putting on eventually. Okay guys, so we're back in the garage now. Just finished parking the car. And we had a pretty good time out on the roads there of wherever we were. I don't know where we were located. We went to another dimension and they had some nice roads there, and we decided to do some pulls. So luckily for us, the car didn't blow up. We didn't see any signs of knock in the data logs and stuff like that. But just wanted to fill you guys in on what we learned. So what we learned is that we were running a little bit rich up top in the higher RPMs, because I noticed that in third gear we had some, I guess you could call it rich misfires. And when I went to check the data logs, I found that the air-to-fuel ratio was dipping down pretty low 10s. So that was, the car didn't like that, the engine didn't like that, so we noticed it, we felt it hiccuping and hesitating a little bit in the top end. So what do? We decided to pull some fuel from the stock direct injection system to lean things out just a touch. So now I think we're in the high 10s, low 11 area in terms of air to fuel ratio, and the car liked it a lot more. Okay, so that also brought down our stock injector duty cycles. So I think right now at Redline, well, at about 24 to 25 pounds of boost, we're right around the 80% injector duty cycle mark. So that's going to give us some room to mix in the in-tank methanol, which of course when you start mixing in alcohol into the gas tank, things start to lean out a little bit because the alcohol itself is more oxygenated. So if I just went ahead and dumped 2 gallons of in-tank methanol into the tank and then topped off with 94 octane and I didn't adjust the tune, what we would see is our long-term fuel trims become a lot more positive, and basically you'd run a lot leaner. So in order to compensate for that, you have to adjust the tune to deliver more fuel to reach the same air-to-fuel ratio targets, because the alcohol is more oxygenated and it contains more oxygen in it. So now that we've got our injector duty cycles down to, let's say, 80%, we can mix in that alcohol and allow the stock direct injection system to go a little bit higher to achieve maybe 90 to 95% injector duty cycle. I don't know exactly how much it's going to increase the injector duty cycle at 24 to 25 pounds of boost, but wherever we land, if we're very close to 100% injector duty cycle, obviously we will not be able to turn the boost up any further. So what we'll have to do is we will have to incorporate more auxiliary fueling and then dial back even further on the stock direct injection system. And then at that point we can then start turning the boost up to a maximum of 28 PSI right now, because I've only got a 3-bar map sensor installed right now. So once we get to that point, that's when I will start playing with the ignition timing. Because you know what, I thought about upgrading to a 4-bar, but we're going to take it in steps. Let's take it to 28 PSI first with the in-tank methanol. Leave ignition timing the same. Maybe play with ignition timing a little bit, see how we like it. And if we're happy with that kind of power, we might not even need to get a 4-bar to raise the boost. Because as you guys saw, it's already pretty fun just on pump gas. And first and second gear, you know, not really fun. But especially if it's cool outside, like in the morning, it's the air is nice and cold and the car just wakes up. You know, you guys know this, like when the air is dense outside and cold, like it just pulls harder, you know. So we'll see, guys. You know, I'm gonna keep you guys updated with the tuning process. But right now, what you just saw was 24 to 25 pounds of boost on the richer side, but we did lean it out a little bit and we found the car likes that a little more. And only 8 degrees of ignition timing so far. Another thing that I learned, but I already kind of knew about it, but I want to fill you guys in about this. The watt box acting as a rev limiter, to limit revs, it cuts the ignition system.
right? The watt box overall cuts the ignition system. So we're using it as a rev limiter to 7,000 RPM currently. We might go higher, but we'll see. If we ride the rev limiter, and I find that I ride the rev limiter accidentally in seconds sometimes, and then when I go to shift to third, I find that I've got no boost in third. And the reason for that is because how the AEM AFR failsafe works is, if you take a look over here, there are two oxygen sensors. Okay, the one on the right is for the AEM AFR failsafe, and the one on the left is for the OEM ECU. So what happens is, when we hit the rev limiter and the watt box is cutting the ignition system, all the oxygen and fuel that would normally be combusted in the combustion chamber now doesn't become ignited because the ignition system is disabled from the watt box. So all of that oxygen and fuel get dumped into the exhaust system. And the oxygen sensor only measures oxygen. So since that oxygen is not used in the combustion process anymore, the AEM AFR failsafe O2 sensor picks up that oxygen. And what happens is, if it detects the oxygen for more than 100 milliseconds, it then sends a trigger signal to the Guardian Angel, which then activates and opens the bypass valve and dumps the boost. So what happens is the AFR failsafe trigger, there's a trigger delay, and I've got it set to 100 milliseconds. I can't go any lower than 100 milliseconds, there's no option for that. But I would rather have it lower at its lowest point so that it reacts to a lean fuel mixture as quickly as possible. In the event that, let's say during a fourth gear pull, the auxiliary fuel system fails for whatever reason, and it detects a lean mixture, I want it to react as soon as possible to dump the boost to protect my engine and save it, right? Now, the workaround to this would be either to stop riding the rev limiter so much, because if I just kiss the rev limiter and I just tap it and then I go into the next gear, it doesn't activate the failsafe system. But if I ride it for too long, that's when I find that I'll shift to the next gear and I've got no boost, right? So what happens is, what you could do is either increase the delay on the AEM AFR failsafe even further to, let's say, 500 milliseconds, so that if in the event that I do ride the rev limiter for too long and it detects the unburnt oxygen, or unused oxygen rather, it won't trigger the failsafe system. Problem with that is, do I really want to have the failsafe system delayed for 500 milliseconds if this fails in the middle of a pull at, let's say, 25 pounds of boost, which is what we're currently running? No, I don't. I'd rather have it activate as soon as it detects the lean mixture. So that's basically what the solution is basically just don't ride the rev limiter for too long. So that's one thing we learned, and that's one thing I wanted to share with you guys. But I'm rambling on again because there's just so much information in my head. But the car's running good. You know, we've got no leaks. It's in good shape. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you learned something from it. Stay in good spirits, everybody, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.
I love the smell of crankcase pressure oil.